Hey everyone, Richard here. Just wanted to do a quick update on the projects that I'm working on. Um, just kind of fill you guys in on, some other stuff. Um, Obviously, PD Mac and I have finished up our weekly readings of the trilogy we wrote. There was only 3 books, so those are done. If you were waiting to listen to those videos until they were all up, uh, you're good to go now. They're all up. So plenty of videos. I think they each were pretty close to 30 minutes. And it was just me reading a chapter and then Doug reading a chapter, or PD Mac. Doug is his real name, by the way. Um, yeah, we finished that. We still would love to get that series into audio one day, but um, it's just kind of expensive. So maybe we'll try another Kickstarter down the road to try to get that in audio um, by a professional narrator. But until then, you'll get the story through our personal reading. So with that said, I'm going to do a lot of the same stuff for some of my older books that are not in audio. Um, or they are, but they're exclusive to Audible, which means I can't put them anywhere else, like on here. So for all the ones that are on here, those narrators I paid up front when I first started really publishing and getting into writing more seriously. Um, some of the books that I did with a royalty share agreement. So essentially, if you're not familiar with what that is, Audible allows authors to post a book up for auditions, and you can say that you are looking for a narrator who's willing to split the royalties with you. So as the author, you don't pay the narrator anything out of pocket. The narrator does all the work of narrating it. They do all the editing, all that stuff. And then the book goes up for sale. And then as the book sells, the author and the narrator each get a portion. Audible actually takes a huge percentage of the sale. They take 60%. And so when you do a royalty share agreement, the author gets 20% and the narrator gets 20%. Audible doesn't allow us to set the prices for our audiobooks. They dictate that on their own. So based on what they price the book at, um, there's kind of some weird algorithm math that they do based on whether someone purchases the book with a credit or whether they purchase it with cash or whatever. You get paid a different royalty amount based on how a customer buys the books. So Audible is definitely not my favorite platform for putting my audiobooks up, but it's the biggest, so it has the biggest audience. Um, so it's kind of a necessary evil. But anyways, not complaining, just kind of laying out facts there. So with that said, there are some titles that I did in royalty share when I first started, before I could afford, to do audio, paying narrators directly and things. So one of those is The Wizard and the Frog. This book was supposed to be a bit of a different story, and it kind of morphed into something different. So my intention from the beginning was to write a comedic fantasy. So it's humor, there's puns, there's funny scenarios. It's got some takes on a few fairy tale stories, Goose and the Golden Egg, things like that. Um, but essentially, it's a shorter book. It was meant to be. It was supposed to be at least a series of 3. Um, the ebook did okay. It broke even, which was good. It was the first book that I had written at that point that had actually done that. And so it was great. It was fun. But I have not written anything else in the series. And the reason is because humor is very hard to write. Obviously it's a lot easier to say a joke or to do something funny that you see when you're watching a movie. That's easy. It's easy to get that humor across. It's not as easy to do it in writing. And so my fear when I wrote the first one and then was trying to do the second one was that it was going to become less humorous fantasy and more serious fantasy, which is not a problem, except that, you know, when you read the first one or listen to it, you get the expectation set that, oh, this is funny stuff. And so I didn't want to disappoint readers, listeners, anybody, with, you know, doing another book and then it kind of losing the humor aspect. So I have plans. You know, if you watch any of my other update videos, I've mentioned previously that I was going to write 15 books this year. Uh, the way things are going right now, I'm not going to come close to that, unfortunately. Lots of stuff going on. Nothing bad, just stuff keeping me busy. Got a new grandkid. So my youngest daughter had a baby in April. So I'm a grandfather times two. Yes, I know I'm young. For those of you who don't follow my other videos, my wife is a little bit older than me, and I married into an existing family unit. So my wife had three daughters, so they're my stepdaughters. But I've been around since they were very young, so I'm their dad. That's that's whatever. So I don't say stepdaughters usually. I say these are my kids because they are my kids, and so I say my grandchildren because they're my grandchildren. So I have a grandson, he's one, and I have a granddaughter now who's 7 weeks as of yesterday. Yes. Yeah, she is doing well, but obviously with another baby in the house, you know, there's a little bit more to kind of interrupt my writing routine and schedule. And she has a little bit of colic, so she cries sometimes in the evening. Not as bad as it was a couple weeks ago. She was crying for like literally hours. It was pretty rough on everybody. But she's getting better. The doctor said it's just a natural thing that happens sometimes, and they eventually get out of it. So she's getting a lot better. So it's a little bit easier to focus and get some things done. Um, so with regards to my writing schedule with what I'm working on now, what's coming, obviously the Price of Honor released. That was awesome. I finished writing that book in the beginning of February, and then I let it sit for about a week. And then I started going through, doing some editing, reading, you know, back over what I wrote, making sure I included everything I intended. And as I said before, it's my favorite book I've written up to this point. It's uh, it's amazing, in my opinion. But so if you've listened to it, then you know. I think you'll think the same. But um, I got Amelia Faye to narrate that book. She is a Taiwanese actress who comes to the U.S. and currently is in the U.S., living in the U.S. And she does acting shows, performances. She does a little bit of everything. And so I was really excited to be able to get on her schedule. The audiobook actually would have been done about a month prior, but she ended up getting some allergies, so it was disrupting her throat and the sound of her voice. So she had to take a break, which threw off the recording schedule a little bit, which is not a problem because I was holding off the release of the ebook and the audiobook until the Kickstarter was done, because I wanted to do that limited edition hardback version. And so she took some time off to get her voice back together. And then after that, she had a show scheduled. And because her schedule was disrupted by being sick, we had both mutually agreed to hold off on her recording until she was done with her show, because she'd be traveling for a month and she would not have the opportunity to record anything. And so we waited, but it worked out perfectly, honestly, because the Kickstarter launched in April and went very well. It far exceeded my expectations. You know, I was asking 800, which was really, I needed more than that to cover the cost of everything. It was more like 1500 is what I was going to require to cover the cost of the printing, of the hardbacks and everything. And they were going to be paperbacks unless we hit a certain amount of funding. Then I was going to upgrade them to hardback, and we hit that and then some. So it upgraded to hardbacks. So if you did not see the campaign, if you did not participate or pledge in it or whatever, no worries. As I said in my Kickstarter video I did, it's there are some of you who are income limited, no problem. I put my books up here for free so you can listen and enjoy stories and without having to worry about spending money. So, no worries. And so, don't feel guilty or anything. It's just something that I was offering to people if they were interested in it. And there was plenty of people who were interested. So it went really well. Um, so um, so yeah, with that said, I'm launching another Kickstarter on the 28th of June. I'll do a separate special video for that. But the first series that I ever wrote, not the first books, but the first series that I ever did was the Fallen King Chronicles. So, Andrew narrated those and they're on here. So if you've listened to them, you know the story. Um, and I decided to mark the 10-year anniversary of the original publication of Dragonsphere, the first book, by doing something special. So instead of doing something for just that one book, I wanted to do something for the whole series. And so I'm doing a 4-in-1 hardback omnibus edition. So the book is huge. It's 700 pages. It's all 4 novels in one hardback edition, and it's 6x9. So it's a little bit bigger of a book, and it's 700 pages. So it's chunky. It's huge. So with that said, I did commission a brand new cover for that one. And the covers have been changed on these books. I can't tell you the number of times. For some reason, the ebook series just didn't really do anything. I sold a couple copies here and there. I mean, I think I've invested more money into the series than it has ever made me, which happens sometimes as an author. Like, it just happens. So no complaints, just, that's the nature of the business sometimes. But I wanted to do something unique for it. It's a dust jacket. And so I'll share the picture of the artwork when I launch the Kickstarter video. But it was a new artist I've never worked with before, but I have seen his work. He is very talented. And so I reached out to him. He was able to fit me in, and he did a really awesome scene from the book 3. So those of you who have listened to the audiobooks, you'll know the scene when you see it on the art, but essentially it's from book 3. It's from the Valiant King when the characters go to the temple basically out in the desert where they meet with the wizard to get the ashes of Mortem. So and he's fighting, a couple different creature types, werejackals and lamias. So it's got him on the cover fighting the werejackals. It looks great. I can't wait for you guys to see it. It is on my website. If you want to see the coming soon Kickstarter logo thing, you can go to my website, richardfierce.com. It's on the front page underneath coming soon. You can take a look there. And if you're interested, you can click that image and it'll take you to the Kickstarter page. It's in pre-launch, so it's not live yet, but you can see the artwork on there. You can click notify. And so if that's something that you're interested in backing, click notify. You'll get updated when it goes live. But I will also post the video, like I said, on the 28th, June 28th. I'll post a video kind of telling you guys about a little bit more. But yeah, it's going to be a hardback edition. So if that's something you're interested, keep your eyes peeled. And that video will go into a little bit more detail what I'm offering and what I'm doing for that anniversary edition. So kind of scattered around here. I didn't really put any notes together for this video, but these are always casual. So don't mind me kind of roaming around in my mind. But I'll be doing a weekly reading again, starting probably next week, maybe the week after. We'll see what happens. But I will be reading from The Wizard and the Frog. So I'm excited to share that story with you guys. The narrator who did that book, because it's an Audible exclusive, amazing. He did really well. There's a singing sword in this book. Okay. and he sang the parts that the sword said in the book. Like, the dude has some talent. He's been an actor. He is an actor in that he's done some smaller roles and some supporting character work and stuff in some movies. Um, and but he did brilliant. He added a little bit of music effect when he was singing, when the sword was singing. It was pretty cool. So obviously, I'm not a singer. I will not torture you with my singing, but I will be reading from the book, and that way you guys get that story. And if you have Audible and you're interested, you can go check it out. He did a great job, like I said. And as I said, that book is supposed to be a series. So when I said 15 books this year, that is one of the ones that I wanted to come back to and finish out that trilogy. So the first one is The Wizard and the Frog. The second one, I already have the titles and kind of the basic plot lines of what's going to go on. But essentially, the character is a monster hunter. And what I wanted to do in the beginning was take some popular fairy tales like the Goose with the Golden Egg, and Beauty and the Beast, and Snow White, things like that, and put a spin on it. So in the first book, it was supposed to be about Snow White, and it kind of went off the rails and kind of went into a different direction. But the book was fun to write, so I didn't have a problem with that. But there are two more planned. I wrote this one in 2018, so that tells you how long ago that was. But I do plan to return to the series this year sometime, assuming everything goes to plan, to finish up those two books. The second one will be called White as Snow, and the third one will be The Beast Within. So they kind of sound like serious titles, but they allude to the fairy tales that I'm putting a spin on in those stories. So if you like my writing style and you love my storytelling, I think you would like that book. So I'll be reading that one and hopefully finishing up the other two this year. And then I'll, after I finish reading that book, I'll jump to another one. I've got a couple standalones that kind of the same deal. They were supposed to be part of a series, and they just kind of never became a series for various reasons. I'll also read some of my short stories from the anthologies that I put together. There are two currently. I invited a couple authors already on the channel to read their story or parts of their story, because some of them are pretty long. So you could check those videos out if you haven't seen them. And then I, of course, have, let's see, I have a nonfiction book. I could read that one. That's another Audible exclusive one that I did a royalty share deal with. It's nonfiction, and it's about faith, Christian faith. So I don't know if you guys would be interested in hearing those things, but it is one of the ones I could read. But essentially, I'll read The Wizard and the Frog. I have a book called Smoke and Blood. And then I have a book called Shard of the Sun. Smoke and Blood is not an audio at all, so that would be brand new. Me reading it, no one will have ever heard it in audio format before. And then Shard of the Sun, that one was narrated. That was the first audiobook I ever did on Audible, and same deal, it's a royalty share deal, so it's kind of locked in. But I will be reading from those, so you guys can get those stories and just enjoy, the story. And so what I am writing right now, I wrote The Price of Honor, and when I wrote that book, my plan after that was done was to start a brand new series. And in the course of writing The Price of Honor, I got to be, in that world again, the Osnen, Dragon Riders of Osnen universe. And I thought, I'm going to do another arc for Eldwin and Marin. Why don't I just go ahead and write them now? Like, I'm in that world, I'm revisiting everything, checking over my notes and stuff. Like, why not just write them again, write them more? So I did write a book 11. It's called The Song of Bones. So if you've listened to the other ones, that should give you some indication of what's coming. Um, and then book 12, I am working on. I have 3 chapters written. I'm kind of stalling out a little bit. That the not that I don't have it planned out, just that, like I said, all the stuff going on around the home is a little distracting. So when I get time, I sit down and I try to write a full chapter at a time, which is anywhere from 12 to 1500 words in a sitting, because I try to maximize my writing time when I can. So book 12 is in progress. I will release book 11 potentially this month. It might be July. Andrew's already recorded the book. It's good. I've approved it. And the ebook is ready to go. There's just a lot of moving parts in releasing a book. Um, and I've got the Kickstarter coming up. So I don't want to have too many things that I'm juggling. And kind of drop the ball on a release of a new book. So with that said, book 11 is done. It's ready to go. I just got to get it, published and then uploaded on here and all that stuff. So book 11 starts, to kind of backtrack a little bit. Dragon Riders of Osnen started out as a single book. I had no intention of writing a series, but I did. I wrote 5 books, thought it was done. Then I got an idea, started kind of dwelling on it, and came back and wrote another 5 books. So essentially, they're written in episodic manner, much like a TV show. I think I've said that many times to people in the comments who say they're too short. They're supposed to be short. All right. And I did it on purpose because of a couple of reasons. One, shorter works just work better for me. When I wrote Dragon Sphere, that took me over a year. The whole Fallen King series, all of those books took me a year or more. Now, granted, that was in the beginning days of my writing stages. So I've learned a lot more about how to maximize my time, how to write more words in a sitting, things like that. Boring writing stuff, boring, author stuff. But anyways, and so I can write a book a lot faster now, assuming I don't have any distractions. Most of the Dragon Riders of Osnen series, believe it or not, I wrote those in 10 to 15 days, all of them, all 10 of them. So from the time I started writing to the time I wrote the end, that doesn't include editing or anything like that, just from the time I started the first chapter and finished it. Every one of them took me between 10 to 15 days. So I don't know if that's good. I don't know if that's bad. I know some people say that you can't put out quality when you write fast. I disagree. And I think all the reviews on my books would say the same thing. They disagree, but that's neither here nor there. Anyways, so I did write book 11 in about the same time frame. The Price of Honor, it was a longer standalone. But I wrote that one in about 6 weeks. So it was about 2 to 3 times, like 2.5 times longer than the rest of the Osnen series. But this one wasn't meant to be a series, The Price of Honor. It was just to be a standalone, something I wanted to tell from the history of the world. That was a great story in my opinion. So, but anyways, I'm getting sidetracked again. I apologize. But so book 11 done, book 12 I'm working on. I'm struggling to get time in some cases, and then when I have the time, sometimes the words just don't want to flow. So I do try to write something, even if it's only a couple hundred words. That way I feel like I'm being productive, because this is something I want to do, but there are other external things that kind of keep me from writing sometimes. So with that said, book 12 is in progress. Now I'm going to put book 11 out, and I'm sure people are going to be asking, where's book 12? So if you don't watch these videos, then you will never know the answer. But book 12 is coming. I'm working on it. But I also am working on another idea. I had a dream the other night. So if you've listened to my books, you know that I write fantasy, in that it's like medieval setting, dragons, magic, that kind of stuff. I don't write urban fantasy. It's nothing against that genre. I just don't. It's just not the genre I write in. I prefer medieval settings because that's just what I'm a fan of. With that said, I love movies like Bright on Netflix, the show Supernatural, things like that, where it's like fantasy in modern day setting, which is called urban fantasy. In case you didn't know, there are different subgenres of fantasy. And when I was growing up and reading like Dragonlance and Forgotten Realms, uh, fantasy that did not meet the medieval fantasy, in my mind, that was not a fantasy book. Even though it had magic or whatever in modern day setting, to me, that was not fantasy. So as I've gotten older and of course wiser, I know that it is fantasy. It's just not the mainstream fantasy that we tend to think of, because I think we all think of Lord of the Rings. That's fantasy. We don't think of Supernatural as fantasy, and some people would probably label it paranormal, on that spectrum of the genre. But either way, I had a dream, and dreams sometimes do influence ideas for stories. So I have had an idea for an urban fantasy, set in modern day time, but there are things going on. I'm sure this video is going long, so I apologize, but if you stick with through the whole thing, thank you for listening to me ramble on for a while. But the book is the idea for this book is that there's a magician who, obviously he's a fake magician. He does stage performances, but he encounters something real, a demon, and it kind of opens his eyes, and he realizes there's a whole world of stuff that most people don't see or are aware of, and it kind of goes, into kind of the vein of Supernatural, essentially. And he meets a wizard, or I should say sorcerer, because there's going to be some official titles of people in these books. But basically, he meets a wizard who hunts spirits and demons and things like that. Keeping the world safe, one of those kind of people. And he kind of gets drawn into that, and that was essentially what I had to start with, and I kind of put it to the side, and I had a dream. It was a very weird dream. I won't explain it here because it won't make any sense to you, because it doesn't make any sense to me. But there was a scene in this dream that that reminded me of this book I wrote, of this book idea that I have, and so I decided to kind of like merge that scene of the dream into this book. So the next morning, started writing. I wrote 2 chapters the other day, and I wrote a chapter today in that book. It's an urban fantasy. Don't have a title yet, but I've sent it to one of my fans who is also a fellow author. And she said she got literal chills after reading the first chapter. And she's begging me to hurry up and finish this book because she wants to know the story. So I'm taking that as it's very good, because it's not my normal wheelhouse. So I think I do enough research into genres before I write in them. I do write under a pen name in some things. I'm not going to share that here because it is completely unrelated to what I write here, and I don't think you guys would care for it. But I do a lot of research into genres that I am not writing in to make sure that I would hit the tropes and the things that readers of those genres want to see or enjoy reading about. And so while I have never written urban fantasy, I've done a lot of research on it. So hopefully, even though it is different than the books I do, medieval fantasy type stuff, hopefully you'll enjoy it when it comes out. I don't know when that will be done. I'm just kind of working on it. It's kind of taken the forefront of my focus right now. So book 12 of Osnen is kind of on hold while I'm kind of writing out some of this stuff, and then I'll go back and write some more in book 12. For the Osnen stuff, I don't know how many I'm going to write. I originally wanted to do 5 books, another 5-book arc. So essentially like the first 5 of season 1, second 5 of season 2, and then book 11 will start off season 3. I want to do 5. I don't know that there's enough story for this arc in particular that I've created to do 5. There will be 2 for sure, possibly 3. We'll kind of see how book 12 goes and where I end up on. we'll see. I don't know. It might be 3 more. It might be 5. I don't know. And then of course this new urban fantasy thing. I also have, I mentioned I was going to do a brand new series after The Price of Honor. That is also on my list of things that I plan to write this year. It's going to be also an Asian fantasy like The Price of Honor, but it's not set in Osnen or anything. It's a brand new world, separate series, and it's gonna be, I don't want to say a fantasy heist novel series because that's a small part of what the plot is going to be, but somewhat like that. So if you like The Lies of Locke Lamora and stuff like that, where it's fantasy heist, not on that scale, but it is going to be, there's going to be a little bit of fantasy heist in it. It's going to be medieval fantasy. It will be Asian inspired. So I really enjoyed writing The Price of Honor and writing about Asian culture, which I love. I spent time in Japan as a child, and it had a lasting effect on me because I love Asian culture, especially Japanese culture. So writing The Price of Honor kind of made me want to write more of that. And so yeah, it's going to be a new series. Um, and I don't have a series name or any titles yet, but I am working on it. I've started the first chapter, so as you see, I have a couple brains in the fire, but there is that. So that's kind of what my schedule looks like right now. I'm hoping to finish book 12 in the next month. I'm hoping to have it pretty much done by the time I finish, or by the time I publish book 11. So we'll see. And then I'm also working on the urban fantasy, and then I plan to come back and do some other stuff to my older series. So I'm going to write the 2 other books for The Wizard and the Frog, and then I'm going to write possibly another 3 for Galactic Mercenaries. So I know some of you enjoyed those a lot and want more. And so that's my plan. We'll see. Plus that new series. So like I said, I had planned to do 15 this year. Not going to be 15 books, but it will be several more, hopefully. So I think I've kind of rambled on long enough. But one more thing I want to talk about is if you have children and you have and they're within the age range of like 4 to 8, maybe 9, 10, and they like to color. I did release a coloring book. So it's a dragon themed coloring book. It's for boys and girls. There's both kinds of dragons in there. And it's for children. Now, if you like to color, feel free to check it out and get it. It is $6.99 on Amazon. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever. It's distributed everywhere. But it's a coloring book. It's got 28 unique images. And on the back side, there is just basically a blank page, but it's got some border on it. And that's for people who like to color with markers. So if you color in, obviously it might bleed through a little bit. So I left the back page blank so that it didn't ruin any coloring pages on the back. Now, if you don't color with marker, then you can doodle on the back, or your kids can doodle on the back, draw their own pictures or what have you. So just wanted to throw that out there, that there's a coloring book, and I potentially might do more of those. This one did pretty well with very minimal advertising, so I may do another one, like maybe unicorns or mermaids or something. My wife said, yeah, dragons are boys and girls, but it kind of leans more towards boys. So maybe do a girl one, especially now I have a granddaughter. She's like, do something like girly. So I may do another coloring book as well, though that didn't take me too long to put together. But yeah, so I think I've rambled plenty long enough. So if you've listened to this whole thing, thank you for spending the last, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes with me, as I kind of rambled on about some things. But I will begin doing the weekly readings for The Wizard and the Frog, probably starting next week. So keep your eyes peeled for those. And if you don't have the notifications turned on, be sure to turn them on. That way you get notified when I put a new video up. So with that said, I will see you guys in the next update video.